Sloppy Joes may be an iconic American food, but they're so much more than just a sandwich. From cheesy casseroles to tasty sloppy nachos, these are all the ways you can seriously up your Sloppy Joe game. One of the key steps you must get right for a successful Sloppy Joe is the consistency of the sauce. While you don't want it to be so heavy that you have trouble spooning it onto a bun, you don't want it to drip off the bread either. So, as your beef simmers away, the sauce should be thickened up. However, if it needs a little help, add a mixture of equal parts cornstarch and water. Start with a tablespoon of each, but exercise caution and wait before adding more. If you don't have cornstarch, then make a roux with flour by cooking it in a little oil to make a paste. You'll then want to incorporate it into the Sloppy Joe sauce. You might also add peanut butter to the filling to thicken it up and enhance the taste. You've surely used baking soda when making gingerbread cookies or other sweet treats, but have you ever used it to make a Sloppy Joe? If not, then you're missing out on a delicious and tender texture. This process is often known as velveting. All you have to do is mix baking soda with your raw meat. From there, you'll want to leave it alone for 20 to 25 minutes so that it can work its magic and tenderize the beef. In terms of ratios, try adding a half teaspoon of baking soda to 1 1/4 pounds of ground beef. You can also sprinkle baking soda onto the onions before frying them. This will soften the vegetables and help them meld with the meat more harmoniously. Once you've tenderized your beef and onions, you'll want to brown them and add sauce to make a Sloppy Joe. However, even if you get the taste of the meat and the thickness of the sauce just right, you'll also want to be sure that all the ground beef pieces are the same size. If you make the pieces of meat fairly small and consistent, you'll enhance the velvety texture all the more. While a Sloppy Joe is meant to be filling, you don't want to be chomping down on large lumps of ground beef. If it doesn't get broken down enough, frying can cause the ground meat to stick together.
Sloppy Joes. I made them extra sloppy for you.
When ground beef reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit, it's safe to consume, according to the USDA. If you're an experienced home cook, then you'll already know this by the look of the meat in the pan as the beef sears and browns. But to create a richer, deeper flavor in your Sloppy Joe, try to cook the beef long enough so that the edges have a little crisp. This will give the beef extra texture and flavor. Furthermore, consider giving it a bit more time when the sauce is added. After all, giving any type of meaty stew a few extra minutes often enhances it. While there are an array of different spices and herbs you can add to ground beef, you simply must include salt. Taste a meat stew, casserole, or bolognese sauce that doesn't have some salt, and you'll find that it isn't quite as tasty. But don't wait until your ground beef is seared and cooked before sprinkling on some salt. Instead, add it while the meat is still browning in the pan. Yes, you can flavor food after it's cooked, but if you don't season ground beef while it's cooking, it likely won't be as flavorful. Get the meat sizzling, then shake on the salt so that it can permeate the beef and bring out the succulent flavor. If you are frying onions before adding the meat, add a little salt to these first and then a little more when the beef is cooking. Don't add salt to raw ground beef as it draws out the juices and can dry out the meat. It's understandable if you want to make a fast Sloppy Joe dinner with a can of manwich.
A sandwich is a sandwich.
But a manwich is a meal.
There's nothing wrong with a shortcut, but if you're using good ground beef, then make the effort to craft a homemade sauce. Canned sauces aren't necessarily unhealthy, but they often include ingredients like high fructose syrup that you might not be down with. If you make a sauce from scratch, you can control what goes into the mix. It doesn't take a lot of time to make the sauce yourself either. You can make Sloppy Joes in 30 minutes without using canned sauce. Combine 8 ounces of tomato sauce with a half cup of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, and a tablespoon of stone ground mustard. For seasonings, add a half teaspoon of onion powder, ground pepper, garlic powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon kosher salt. Pour this on your nearly cooked ground beef that's already sizzling away in the pan. Continue to cook for another 5 minutes before serving. The savory taste of beef and the sweetness of the sauce should shine in a Sloppy Joe. Whatever ingredients you add to the mix, one of the easiest mistakes when cooking Sloppy Joes is to allow one flavor to outshine the rest. If this is an issue, tweak the amount of ketchup you add or choose a particular mustard depending on the spiciness you prefer. Or perhaps a seasoning like paprika will help balance these other ingredients. You can also offset sweet elements in your Sloppy Joe with sour ones, such as Worcestershire sauce or red wine vinegar. For an extra kick, elevate the heat with red pepper flakes. Less is often more with many recipes, and perhaps never more so than when making a Sloppy Joe. There aren't any super strict rules when it comes to adding aromatics and seasonings. However, if you want a rich beefy taste, then don't go over the top with the aromatics. First, finely chop the onions so that it almost disappears into the ground beef while cooking. You may not want to be crunching down on anything as you bite into the sandwich. You might even want to forgo the bell pepper to make the sauce super smooth. If you're worried about flavor, you can always add onion powder and garlic powder to the sauce instead. Since a sloppy joe is by no means fancy, you might think there's no need to drain the excess grease while cooking it. However, you could be making a mistake. First, you want to use meat that's around 90% lean. If you haven't got lean meat, then you'll have to remove some of that fat when the beef is cooked. Otherwise, your sandwich will be swimming in grease.
We don't serve it with any grease or fat.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
Since you may be adding quite a few seasonings to sloppy joes, you don't want too much fat in the way of tasting these flavorful ingredients either. The easiest way to remove grease from a hot pan is with a spoon. Angle the skillet slightly so that the oil runs down to one edge to drain the meat, and carefully spoon out the grease. While it's never a mistake to make sloppy joes using good quality ground beef, it is a good idea to consider using other ingredients. Taking a classic recipe and adapting it can enhance your cooking skills while also accommodating different food preferences and dietary requirements. For meat-free days or vegetarian diners, try vegan sloppy joes made with red lentils, onion, red bell pepper, and garlic. For the sauce, look for a vegan Worcestershire too. A thick slice of red onion on a toasted hamburger bun finishes this hot sandwich off perfectly. For a lighter meat taste, what about making tangy turkey and apple sloppy joes? The fruit not only brings sweetness, but also a tart acidity and a bit of texture too. First, you'll want to saute ground turkey for 10 minutes so it's browned and cooked through. Then add the apple to the sauce ingredients along with apple cider vinegar. After loading up the buns, serve this take on sloppy joes with sweet potato fries and a side of coleslaw. And don't forget about sloppiatos, which can be made with either ground pork or beef. Sauerkraut is also added to the mix, while a bit of sour cream is put on top. Sometimes the most delicious retro dishes are the simplest ones, like sloppy joes. But why not enhance them? There's a whole lot of extra flavor you can add to these classic sandwiches that just can't be ignored. Because the sauce and beef mixture can get sweet, try a topping that lends heat and smoky flavor to the sandwich, like roasted hatch green chilies. Or what about garnishing it with lime or sweet pickles too? Meanwhile, a slaw or even a sprinkle of shredded cabbage gives sloppy joes a crunchy contrast. Then of course there's cheese. Is there anything that doesn't taste good with melted cheese? To make tasty grilled cheese sloppy joes, add baked garlic Texas toast to a skillet with melted butter. Place 2 slices of cheese on top of each piece of toast and add a spoonful of sloppy joe filling. You'll then want to top it with another slice of garlic bread. Cover the pan and cook the cheesy sloppy joe sandwiches for a few minutes on either side. There are plenty of sloppy joe recipes that don't require you to toast the bread. However, that doesn't mean you can't take some initiative and pop the buns under the broiler or in a toaster. While some may proclaim that the texture of a soft roll is the best, adding a little crunchiness is also very satisfying. Toasting serves a practical purpose as well. Consider the fact that sloppy joes are, well, sloppy and can quickly turn into a soggy mess. By toasting the bread, you create a crispy barrier that allows you to chow down while also containing the filling. To get a lovely taste and golden hue, butter buns before you toast them. But only do this if you're popping them under a broiler or using a toaster oven. Furthermore, remember to butter only the cut sides so the roll stays soft. If you love the crispy difference, then opt for an open sandwich by simply spooning the sloppy joe sauce over thick slices of toasted bread.
Toasting.
For a crunchy sloppy joe toast, add the mixture to split baguettes that have been toasted on one side. Then add fresh mozzarella on top of the meat and broil it to toast the cheesy topping even more. Sloppy joes have been a tradition for so long that it's difficult to think of them as anything other than a sandwich. However, there are many ways you can enjoy sloppy joes without a bun. Since the mixture is pretty much a ground beef stew, why not turn it into a sloppy joe casserole? You don't have to change up the ingredients much either. Make the sauce on the stovetop and stir in cooked pasta. From there, pour it into a casserole dish, top it with shredded cheese and hamburger buns, and bake it in the oven. You can always add more veggies if you like, or even leave out the pasta. You can even add a different topping, such as cheesy tater tots. Sloppy joe meat is also great when it's put on top of cheesy fries. And if you happen to be eating the waffle cheesy fries, even better, seeing as they can hold more sauce. Or maybe you can create sloppy joe nachos. You can also add the filling to crescent roll dough and bake it in the oven for a meaty pastry. And you've heard of a chili dog, right? What about a sloppy joe dog? You can add a spoonful of sloppy joe meat to a baked potato too. And bolognese pizza is so spectacular that there's no reason that a sloppy joe couldn't work there as well.